How to make money in condo conversions. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. Today we're going to talk about how people make money in condo conversions and condo deconversions. So if you're not familiar with what that means, basically it means going from condos to apartments or apartments to condos. Each way works, and how do people make money off it? Now, if you're not familiar with what the difference between condos and apartments are, basically condos are individually owned units by individual owners. Sometimes they live in them themselves, sometimes they rent them out to tenants. But each unit itself is individually owned. The owners all get together and they form a homeowners association, and they end up contributing money to it to pay for maintenance of the building, insurance, taxes, that kind of thing. An apartment is owned by a single owner, and now obviously that single owner isn't living in the apartment. He can't live in all of them, but he's trying to get a return on his investment. So he's going to rent all of the units out in the apartment building and then make a return on that. So that's the difference between condos and apartments. You really can't tell looking at an apartment building, whether it's an apartment or a condo building, and they can be converted, as we're going to talk about today. So there's really no physical thing that can tell you whether one is an apartment or a condo, but they do have very different mechanics involved. And we're going to talk about how people make money going from one to the other once they're already built. First one we're going to talk about is condos to apartments. So this will be known as a condo deconversion. Now, with either way, whether going condos to apartments or apartments to condos, you've got to ask why. And what is this play that investors are looking at when they make a conversion? And really what they're doing is they're arbitraging two different valuation types. So when we talk about condos, the way a condo developer or investor makes money is that they end up selling each individual unit. With apartments, the whole building is based on a cap rate and the income that it makes, the NOI. So you have two different valuations. You could say the condos is the sum of the value of all of the units in a building, and apartments is a function of the cap rate and the NOI. So where you see a conversion or deconversion is when there's a marked difference between condos and apartments, or vice versa. And that's where you get people trying to invest and make money in them. And there are some times in the market cycle when the prices between condos and what the apartment evaluation will be pretty much the same, and so no one's doing conversions of any kind. But when you do have that split difference, it does present arbitrage opportunities, and that's what a lot of investors will do. So with condos to apartments, you have to go through a series of steps. The first one, and probably the trickiest one, is you have to buy out each individual unit. Now, it could be a lot easier said than done. Imagine having to go out and buy every unit in a large building. Even look at the building I have here in the background. I'm going to use it this week. Buying each unit in that building would take some serious capital. Not only that, but you're going to have to pay market or above market price to get every unit. Now, throw into that, once neighbors start getting wind that there's someone trying to buy up the whole condo unit, what's that going to do to some of the more financially well-off condo owners, especially those who are living there? They're just going to say, no, I'm not going to sell it. Or they're going to ask a ludicrously high price. So once you start buying up more and more and that becomes known, the job becomes tougher and tougher. So what a lot of condo owners will do that are trying to convert to apartments is they're going to secretly buy up units. They're going to either buy in entities that have different names. They're going to use friends to buy them up, and they're going to do it very slowly over time. And how they actually do that is they buy a unit and then they'll actually rent it out in the meantime, so they're cash flowing positive, or at least they're not, out of pocket every month. And over time, they're going to slowly collect all of these units. Now, you don't have to get to 100%. It depends on the state, but some states it's 70%, 80%, where once you get over that threshold, then you can actually force liquidate the other unit owners. So that's laws that a lot of these investors will take advantage of. And you can have some more sinister ways of taking over buildings as well. Once you get over, say, 50%, now you have controlling vote on a lot of the HOA matters. And why that's important is that now you can say, hey, if we want to levy a 50% HOA assessment on all the owners, call it 100K, 150K, well, now you know that a lot of these owners can't afford that and they're going to go into foreclosure. And I've actually seen that down here in Miami, where it's really a wild world where these investors are coming in and trying to force these assessments on some condo owners. So it can get very messy. So condos to apartments is a very difficult game, actually. It takes a lot of capital and a lot of time as well. But let's say you can get through that. What you then got to do is you have to consolidate the pins. So you've got many different pins. If you have a 50 unit building, you've probably got 50 different pins for each of the units in there. Now you got to consolidate them into a single pin. And that really takes a survey. You got to do a survey, and then you got to go to the local municipality, go through a paperwork process. They're going to verify it. They're going to do an assessment on each of the pins and say what the tax liability is going to be. Typically, when you go on the other way from apartments to condos, it gets more expensive when you individualize the units. But when you go on the other way to apartments, it should actually decrease. Then you got to lease up the units. Remember, you're going to be selling it on a valuation of the income. And if you've bought all the units, you've pretty much kicked everyone out. But you're going to lease up all the units and get it into a stabilized state. And then once you have it there, you can look to sell it at the market cap rate. And then hopefully that valuation is a lot higher than what you bought each individual unit for. So that's gone from condos to apartments. Again, when apartment cap rates are super low, this play can make a lot of sense, especially targeting condo buildings that are older. Again, if there are deferred maintenance, big ticket items causing HOA stress on the residents of a condo building, then you start to see those kind of condo conversions or condo deconverters kind of swarming around and looking for that opportunity. So how about going the other way? We're going from apartments to condos. A lot easier on the acquisition front. You just have to purchase an apartment building. You're doing one negotiation, getting one deal. Obviously, the play here is that you need an arbitrage the other way. Apartments need to be relatively cheaper, and you're going to go and try and split them up, sell as individual condos. So this one's a lot quicker on the front end, but potentially a lot slower on the back end because you have to sell off each individual unit. So we got to split up the pins. Very similar process. You got to go through a survey, really a paperwork process with a local municipality that can vary from place to place. But effectively, you're splitting up pins into individual units, and your tax burden is typically going to go up overall compared to keeping them as a single apartment building. Renovate units. So you probably have to do this in the apartments as well. You need to get them up to lease-ready state. But with condos, remember, people are going to be buying them on the back end, and usually there's a much higher threshold. When people purchase a property, their expectations for quality and perfection, for lack of a better term, is a lot higher because they're going to be owning it. They're probably going to be living there for the longer term. So there is probably going to be some level of renovation done to these units, and it should hopefully increase the prices as well if the underwriting was done correctly. And then the last step is selling, and I put here slash leasing individual units. Now, this has to be done in a very methodical way, especially the bigger building you have. Now, imagine you have a 300 unit complex. If you suddenly put 300 units on the market, it's going to play havoc with all the pricing and the whole market in general in that local submarket. So typically, what these investors will do, they'll sell them off a lot slower. They'll first, I should say, they'll at least put them on the market a lot slower. They're not going to put every unit on the market at the same time. They're going to put maybe, 3 or 4 of each floor plan, or maybe even 2. And then what they're going to do with the others that they're holding on to is they're going to lease them out. They're going to stem the bleeding of the cash flow. They're going to lease them out, and it might be attractive to a buyer who's looking to have a unit just cash flow for them individually. So that's really the fickle part of selling condos, especially if it's a larger one, is not flooding the market instantly with a lot of sales of new units. You got to do it slow, methodically, and you're probably going to end up leasing it out, quite a few of them. As time goes on, you're going to sell more and more. You might even get some appreciation as time goes on, but at the end, you hope to completely exit out of that building. And again, looking for that arbitrage. Were the condos as a whole worth more than the apartments and what you bought them for? So that's the ultimate question. So that's all we have for today. Really, the arbitrage between valuations is the key takeaway of this. How you evaluate apartments, the NOI, with as a function of the cap rate, and then condos basically adding up all of the value of each condo in a building. And if you have an arbitrage situation where one value is significantly higher than the other, then you have an opportunity there. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.